Let's get started. It's 10:07.
Let
us.
Tomato. Bacon.
Tomato.
All right, let's go.
Cheesesteak.
Let's go. Brett, be quiet. Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. It is episode number 700.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. No, you're muted too. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We've reached episode 763 somehow. It's March 6th, 2024 as I record this. I'm Sebastian Peak.
Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sprumberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
Yes, everybody's unmuted and we can begin. So you can find out how to support PC Perspective on Patreon. We actually have a Patreon. I don't know if you know this or not. It's been years now. Patreon.com/PCPer. Help keep this going, please. Put your name in lights. Put your name here. So I awkwardly try to frame my hand. I don't even know what I'm doing. Let's go to the burger segment. Josh is back. We're at full strength. We got 5 people here and a PCPer logo. Tell us about your latest food exploits, Josh.
So there I was. It's been weeks since Barn in the Barn had a special. Weeks. And, of course, I've been gone through a lot of February. Now it's into March. Yeah, it's March. I got stabbed in the back again. No special today. So I had to dig into the menu. And I've never had this one, but it was pretty tasty. It was their version of the cheesesteak. Let me tell you, it was cheesy. Brioche bun, thin cut sirloin steak that I think that they actually smoked because it was tasty. Bell peppers, onions, and 2 types of cheeses, a cheddar and a queso. And it's just so sloppy, you can't eat it with your hands. No, you got to get out the fork and knife. And let me tell you, there's a significant amount of meat in there. It was well prepared. It was tasty. So the entire entree was outstanding. It wasn't a burger, but you know what? A cheesesteak will do. And the fries were good too. Didn't even have to use ketchup. So there you have it. The burger / cheesesteak of the week.
It's time for the PCPer News Desk, and our top story, in no particular order, JEDEC has published the GDDR7 memory spec. Get ready for new graphics cards that don't have GDDR6, except in like the budget and mid-range segment. And no more of that stopgap GDDR6X. I fully expect the next flagship NVIDIA GPU to take advantage of this because even though 6X was a nice stopgap, if you look at this AnonTech article, you can see that that was a non-JEDEC standard. Though it did offer total bandwidth of 768 gigabytes per second, GDDR7 ups that to a terabyte per second. That's 1,024 gigabytes. But at lower voltage, 1.2 volts versus 1.35.
Sebastian, the chart notes that 6 and 6X had the same amount of bandwidth. Is that a misprint?
I don't know. Maybe it was just the way it was implemented was different. I have no idea. I thought the whole point of 6X was just faster.
Oh, no. You said, look, 24 gigabit sampling, but it never got up that high.
No.
24 gigabit shipping.
Oh.
It did.
There's the reason.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, GDDR6
Josh
went to, 20 to 22 gigabit, but no further at the end.
Dang it. You know what? I wasn't even looking at that. The bandwidth per pin. Josh is absolutely right. GDDR7, 32 gigabit per second in Gen 1 with 48 gigabit per second max. This is ridiculous. Like the potential for this, especially with the lower power. And 6X could get pretty toasty. 3090s had some pretty hot DRAM at times. So, yeah.
Especially on the back of the card.
Yeah, where it wasn't actively cooled.
So let me get this straight. There have been 2 out of the 5 who've actually touched a 4090, right?
Well, last week we saw Kent caressing them. So
exactly, he caresses things.
I only have one of those. The other's a 4080.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Do you ever feel
$1,200
disappointed
versus $1,600
It's
card?
a mere
Yes.
4080.
Do you ever feel disappointed when you pick up a 4080 and it's just so big? The coolers on those things are massive. They have the weight, and you're like, oh, it's a 4080 because it's the same cooler as a 4090. It's such a small chip compared to the 4090. It feels like it's a letdown. I would want a smaller cooler to just help differentiate them because it takes away some of the specialness of the 4090. I don't want my quad slot card to be a 4080.
There is one disappointment in the 4080 Founders Edition that's in my wife's system.
Okay.
It has the worst coil whine of any GPU I've ever been exposed to.
Well, I'll trade
tiny
it for
water-cooled
a 3060 Ti.
Yeah,
It's really quiet. So
You know what? She could get a lot of enjoyment out of that 3060 Ti.
Yeah, she would.
What kinds of games is she playing? Maybe the coil line is because she's at like 900 frames per second.
The bad thing is, since I built that, I don't know that she's played much of anything.
Yeah. It's just Windows
so the
desktop
coils are whining
coil line.
because they're not being used.
That's probably true.
So the 500 frames of Fortnite or Rocket League or League of Legends, then yes, that you're going to have a noisy freaking card.
Our next riveting news story comes from Tom's Hardware, where we're going to talk about a foundry, but not Intel this week. Samsung Foundry, who's kind of taking a page from the Intel playbook here. They're going to rename a process because everybody else is doing it. 3 nanometer? No, now it's 2 nanometer.
Does this make my package look smaller?
Yes.
They're hoping so. Yeah, no, I mean, ever since probably 90 nanometer, maybe even a little above that, 180 nanometer,
they've been lying oversized.
It hasn't been very accurate as to, defining the smallest feature on a transistor.
Right.
And so, they're talking about now the sizes in between structures, which is not also correct either. No. So yeah, it's marketing, and it has been for a long time. And Intel was great with that because their 10 plus became Intel 7, and their 7 nanometer became Intel 5. And now there's 3 and 20 angstrom and 18 angstrom, and just it's silly, and it's just marketing. So don't put too much faith in a process node's name. You need to look at the products that are produced off of said process and judge them, because we are in such an interesting area of manufacturing design, and design has always been key. I mean, you can have a great process, but if your design is crap, then it's still going to be crap. And but at the same time, you can design around a lot of the limitations of a process and still have a good product. But yeah, all of this is just marketing talk. And they say, well, we've got a 2 nanometer process and our competition is running TSMC 5N, and it doesn't mean anything. It's everybody's using the same tools. They're using the same litho. I mean, they can do a few changes in how you're doing it in terms of, alchemy, what you're adding where, and the different steps. But at the same time, they're all using the same tools.
Coming soon. I can't believe it's not 2 nanometer.
But I am curious how the gate all around stuff is going to come out. Is it going to be another jump? That's going to be, the first mass produced parts. It's very complex to do GAA, and they're figuring it out. If you think about building blocks at that small of dimensions of deposition and etching and litho, and
the sad part is it'll be server first, and neither you nor I will get to play with a server based on it.
Or Apple.
Fair. Yeah.
We'll just pay for it.
By the way, in response to the story, Samsung issued a statement Since the information about the reported renaming of the SF3 manufacturing technology to the SF2 fabrication process did not come from Samsung, it cannot comment on the matter. Meanwhile, Samsung said it is going to make some foundry-related announcements in due course. Like this one. Okay.
So in the PR
surprise, it's now 2.
Right. We were saving that. That was our big thing for Computech.
Yeah, you're supposed to do it.
All right. Hey, in a follow-up
welcome
story.
to the PC Perspective Podcast. Well, no. I'm not going to.
Oh.
In a follow-up to our story about CUDA translation layers, remember we were talking about ZLUDA a week or two ago? Well, NVIDIA's changed their terms with CUDA. Their licensing terms now forbid reverse engineering, decompiling, disassembling any portion of the output generated using software elements for the purpose of translating such output artifacts to target a non-NVIDIA platform. In other words, let's shut down ZLUDA.
Naughty.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't translate CUDA to other don't try to run CUDA on Radeon. That's a problem.
Come on, guys.
A plugin architecture that targets the AMD API is no good. That's CUDA compatible on one side. Yeah. Okay.
It had to be a reason
they could map that
both Intel and AMD ended up passing on the technology before it went open source.
Well, I mean, they've had licensing disputes over the past years that they might have learned from.
Yes. So just in case you're getting excited about that, it's going to be legally dubious and who's going to want to get involved in spending, real money on development when they're worried about NVIDIA cracking down on them. Now that NVIDIA is a $2 trillion monster and
they can afford to win lawsuits.
Yeah, they can afford to have more lawyers than Nintendo.
Oh, Mama, don't take my CUDA cores away.
Or Apple.
Speaking of Apple and cores, who doesn't love Apple MacBook Air? It's not a wedge shape anymore. It's powered by Apple Silicon these days.
Can you still cut a cake with it?
I don't know. It looks thicker. It's like 2 iPads with a hinge, kind of. Anyway, it's better than ever, according to this Apple press release, because they've added the M3 processors to both the 13 and 15-inch MacBook Air.
Are we sure this isn't an M2 that they just suddenly renamed an M3?
I don't know. I haven't opened one up to verify this. But
the diff between the 2 and the 3 in the lower end isn't as great as they'd like to say.
No, it is not. They're rather similar in many respects, but just an FYI. I know Brett's on our show. I had to add this to the list. I'm like, I know he's going to put this on the list if I don't. So if you're still rocking one of those ancient Intel-powered MacBook Air laptops, get ready for lessened compatibility with the latest versions of macOS and Apple Silicon. Not that there's any problem with Apple Silicon running its Rosetta 2 translation layer. Speaking of translation layers, the problem is just that, modern versions of macOS just forbid you from running older applications. And I'm not just bitter because my old, aging, semi-useless, standalone license for Lightroom 6 that I paid for, and Lightroom 5 for that matter, are unusable because the installer is not 64-bit and anything from like Catalina on up says absolutely not. But that's
just
neither here nor
parallels.
there.
Run Parallels on a.
Who wants to run Parallels? Parallels is another licensed nonsense. If I wanted to pay to rent my software, I would just have Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
Roku. You may know this. It's a series of set-top boxes that then sort of became a TV operating system. Well, they've been pushing out. I saw this email myself and ignored it, but they've been pushing out individual arbitration terms that you have to agree to, or you can't even use the device. When you power it on, it's forcing you to agree to this thing. Or what is it, Jeremy? Write a letter. Just stop using your device, write them a sternly worded letter, and then wait a month.
Well, no, it has to be sent within a month of you first seeing the pop-up. And they want like proof of purchase and model number and stuff like that. And of course, we all keep our proof of purchases for TVs. And you can probably dig it up, but you need to get it quick to write to them to say, I don't like this. And small problem. you've already agreed to this. So that's what makes this weird. Like the previous agreement that you had with Roku, I agree that you just ignore and whatever because you don't have to. You can just sort of skip it, but you still agree to it. Was saying that, yeah, no, you can't take Roku to court over anything that was wrong with their product. You have to accept binding arbitration. And this was already on the books. This was already something you agreed to. So suddenly making a pop-up that essentially bricks your device until you accept it is very odd. And you're going to upset a lot of people, and you're not going to make anyone happy with this choice. So I'm not quite sure what they think they're doing. And the people were like upset. Yeah, fine, I have to agree to the Roku stuff, but I literally can't plug in a different HDMI source and watch something from a Blu-ray or play my Xbox or watch my cable. Nothing at all related. Now, if you unplug the Roku from the network and never plug it back in again, well, and in the US you won't see this because I might point out that this is only in the US that they're doing this.
That makes it super useful. Why? Of course, I would want to use my streaming device without an internet connection. Perfect.
Of course you would.
And then, of course, if it's a Roku TV, those are some of the most inexpensive TVs. It's like Hisense, Roku TVs, TCL. And why are they so cheap? Oh, it's because they're subsidized by advertising. Oh, you're not actually buying it. We want you to get comfortable with the idea of not owning your TV.
And there it is right there.
Right there.
But saying the quiet part out loud is spreading a little quicker than sometimes we would expect.
It's like, oh, why are TVs like $200 now for a 55-inch TV? It's because you're paying money to be spied on, and then you're not supposed to have any legal recourse for anything that they do to you.
And no opt-out advertising.
Next up, gatekeeper companies respond to the EU's Digital Markets Act. From this image that Jeremy chose, apparently not happy about it.
There's a wee bit of whining, and it's perfect because this goes into effect tomorrow. And so today is when everyone has decided to email everyone and their dogs about how horrific offering choices in the European Union will be. Because at its heart, essentially what the Digital Markets Act in the EU is saying, okay, Amazon's, Apple's, Meta, you need to start offering people choices. You cannot give an Android phone that only has the Google search engine on it. You have to give them the option if they don't want to do that. Apple, you need to let people buy stuff from stores other than Apple Store, or let people come in to sell stuff on the Apple Store without completely and utterly ripping them off. Meta, just because someone signed up for Facebook, you can't force them to immediately link their Instagram and stick everything else into one. You have to offer them a choice. So, of course, the responses are pretty obvious. Apple is saying it's going to be a malware apocalypse because, my God, I mean, you're going to let people use wireless payment without IPA? I mean, that's just unthinkable. I mean, it's going to destroy iPhones left, right, and center to give people the choice of not using our proprietary one. Facebook is, of course, well, they're going to miss out on all this great stuff. I mean, if you're not automatically signed up for Facebook Marketplace, you're never going to be able to get these ads for stuff that you're never going to buy that is definitely on sale. Google is just like, well, I mean, if we're not allowed to put our own promoted stuff at the very top, when you search for a specific brand, you might get some weird aggregator that just, happened to show up at the top of our results that we had nothing to do with whatsoever. And the thing is that you can choose to remain in that pure ecosystem. If you want to run an iPhone exactly like it's always been and never touch anything else, that's fine. You want to set up your Android the exact same way that it has always been, that's a choice. You can do that. But, of course, these companies are looking at a little chunk coming out of their monopoly. And they're, of course, trying to exaggerate all of the horrific things that could happen that definitely aren't already happening already, and is not really not going to make anything worse unless they choose to, which is a poor choice on the business side, because if Google starts spinning up really, really crappy stuff at the very beginning, well, they forget there are other search engines out there that people could say, you know what, I'm just going to switch over to that because you guys are throwing a hissy fit. But the absolute best of all of them was Apple, implying that if you were to install some of these non-approved apps from their particular store, it might have a negative impact on your battery. They are, of course, about to have a $2 billion fine levied against them in the EU for doing specifically that.
Well, Apple wants to protect your experience. So if your battery's below a certain threshold, then they don't want you to buy a new phone necessarily. They just want to reduce the performance of your existing phone significantly so that, you have choppy playback of YouTube videos and stuff. And you're like, maybe I should shell out for the latest.
Shiny new one. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of the EU and people being unhappy.
Yes.
DMA be damned. Apple cuts off path to Epic Game Store Fortnite on EU iPhones. Epic thinks it's retaliation. I can't imagine Apple retaliating at all.
Apple's it's like, no, we just can't trust that you're going to do the stuff that you promised to do.
That's basically, they're pointing at past tweets from Epic talking about how unfair Apple has been and all of the unfair practices and a lot of things that they say that they're going to do to skirt around Apple limitations.
Yeah, because that's the most amusing thing is that the DMA is essentially saying that no, Apple, you do have to let other companies have access to your store. And literally on the eve, like as of right now, it is in effect in the European Union. They're already in tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see. This may well be one of the first cases that goes up because of this. And it will be, should I say, epic? Because Apple is going to scream and yell that they've never done anything wrong. And Epic is just going to be, yeah, we're Epic. We bitch and whine a lot, but we didn't actually say we were going to do anything horrible.
Look, just because we're unprofessional on social media doesn't mean that you should not consider us to be the, consummate professionals that we want to be on occasion. I'm not pro Apple here. I just think that they were very publicly trying to court public opinion to win favor, to gain momentum for their cause, and now they're,
But at the same time, realizing they're going to have legal leverage to be unscrewed very soon. At least in the EU.
I mean, come on. Yeah. Who isn't looking forward to Tim versus Tim 3, the courtroom drama of all time?
Android apps on Windows 11 will stop working next year. Do you remember that Microsoft had official Android app support in Windows 11? Well, it's being deprecated.
It was popular with some people. It was. There were like hundreds and hundreds of apps, especially available through the Amazon store, and they even updated it a few times. But that all comes to a screeching halt in 2025. In fact, as of like tomorrow, you'll even be able to find it. Today, March 6th. We'll no longer even be able to find it on the App Store that you can get Android apps. So if you've got it already, or if you know where to get it, you better do it soon because that Android party on Windows 11 is coming to a close in 1 year, March of 2025. It will stop working altogether.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that those who want to do it will still be able to because it's Windows and everything's available on Windows.
There will probably be a way.
All right, let's move to Insecurity Corner. Already, it's time.
Oh.
And here's our first security story. Meet the first generative AI worm. This is a disturbing visual.
Of course, name Morris too, because
it's nice.
It's yeah. As they say, if you know, you know. This is a weird one. It's a couple of researchers that have made both a text-based self-replicating prompt and a self-replicating prompt hidden within an image file. But essentially what it does is you could email this to someone who's using one of those millions of AI assistants to handle all your email replies and such. But the thing is that this prompt is enough to make it go out and grab stuff from ChatGPT or whichever LLM that they're using. But it tricks it into including personal data being included in the generated response. So it's all of a sudden your system just starts bleeding stuff it really shouldn't, because that AI assistant of yours has access to all of your email. And so this prompt can get a lot of stuff out of it by malformed or, malicious, should we say, prompts being sent to the LLM from this AI assistant. And even better, what it can do is if you forward it on, which of course it can force your AI assistant to do by convincing it that someone needs, then all of a sudden it can spread to another machine, sort of like the Morris worm back in the day. And it just keeps doing these because they're self-replicating prompts. So just because it's sitting there in your inbox, that AI assistant is going out like crazy trying to find the answers that, a human would probably want to get and spilling all of your stuff. Now, it's significantly more complex than that. And so you should drop by Ars Technica or even just read the paper. The research paper is very interesting. So, because what you're looking at is a self-replicating and self-generating AI worm, because it will slowly change stuff as it's getting feedback, or because now you've got stuff so you can send another email with yet more replicating prompts, which then just continues to spread. The good news is,
remember,
this
Jeremy, part of the trick was getting the AIs to repeat the question back to the questioner. And that was part of the self-replicating process, and that it was able to use the worm essentially in coming back, so that the automation could pull that together and then send that someplace else.
Yes.
So it just kind of grew from that. It's, again, as you said, it's relatively complex. You should read the paper.
Yeah. The only good news is that these were tested against development type AI assistants. Any of the current commercial solutions out there are probably not going to be, affected by this. But a couple of updates in your ChatGPT, your Gemini, your Lava, any of those is going to not only be vulnerable to it, but quite happily spread it as far and wide as it can.
Next, from Ars Technica, hackers exploited Windows 0 Day for 6 months after Microsoft knew of it? That doesn't sound good.
That's because it's not a 0 day. It's not actually a problem.
Oh.
It's 186 day.
No, as far as Microsoft is concerned, having an admin escalation that then affects the kernel is not a problem, because they don't protect the kernel from the admin access. So, hey, it's fine.
So when the North Koreans were doing it, that's fine.
Well, I mean, it's not Microsoft's problem, because they've already said that, hey, we really don't care. There is, with Windows security, we can't really isolate the kernel from people with admin access, because that's sort of how our fudged together system works. So we reserve the right to occasionally patch them, like if we feel that it's something that nasty, or it hits the news and realizes that, wow, some people are getting upset that government level attackers have been doing this for about 6 months now, and we haven't actually done anything. Maybe we should look at doing something about this. Because, I mean, their point is, hey, they've already got admin access on your box through another infection. What are we supposed to do about that? You've already screwed up. Because sandboxes aren't a thing. It's frustrating. But as far as Microsoft's concerned, this is part of their terms of agreement. Hey, we just don't protect the kernel from the admin access.
What's next? Hold on, let me pull up the next news story.
Insanity.
It's good news.
Oh, really?
For once,
Hey, whenever I see VMware in the list, I know it's going to be good news.
Oh, and it never appears in a news item. It always appears in this part of the show.
Yeah. Okay.
So are we heading towards the mountains of madness now? I mean, with VMware, everybody's got it.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just not. They're not making people happy these days. This is from Bleeping Computer.
They are.
VMware fixes critical sandbox escape flaws in ESXi Workstation and Fusion.
Even in the old free versions, they fixed it. It was that bad. People have, what has it been, about 2 weeks now, Brett?
Well, when you can escape the sandbox and break into either the underlying OS or other people's VMs, that seems bad. So there's 3 flaws here that they've patched. That allow exploitation of local admin. So there's some access you had to have already, but maybe renting a cheap VM on a service is fairly easy to do. There are some out-of-bound write flaws. It really wasn't that difficult to do, especially because they left access to the USB drivers, which is honestly where a lot of the problems stemmed from. You could just turn them off as a temporary fix before putting the patches. Just remove all the USB. The ability for any of the system to talk to the USB subsystem,
But
and that would fix
How
it
do you
temporarily.
epoxy a USB port on a virtual machine?
I don't know. I don't know.
That was
how
the
they
first thought I had
do a
when I
pass-through.
read that. It's like, well, how do I
Like,
epoxy those?
Why does the VM have USB device drivers? Is really
That
the
was my
question here.
second
And
question.
I can't answer that. I don't know, but they provided them, and that apparently was the gateway drug for getting access to the underlying VM or other VMs here. So,
And I
they
can
finally
see
patched that out.
Some bizarre setup where you are actually calling to the USB for God only knows what bizarre reason, but enabled by default? Really?
Yeah.
And look what happened. Look what happened. Look what you did.
If an organization out there that is rocking VMware, you've got to patch. You've got to pull this up, patch, or turn off, or pull the USB subsystem out. But probably the patching is the better alternative.
Yeah. And they're going back to like 6.7, 6.5 for this. Like totally ones that they've said we'll never support, we'll never give an update to again. They've actually pushed an update for it. So even if you're running an old one, just do it.
I think part of the reason is the top offender here hit a 9.3 on the vulnerability Richter scale, so to speak. So they consider this one relatively dangerous.
It kind of is. You thought your sandbox
9.3 isn't bad. We've seen higher, but 9.3 is reach for the stars, VMware. Good for you.
Let's move on to gaming quick hits, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this, so Jeremy, take it away.
What, thaumaturge?
Thaumaturge? Okay.
Thaumaturgy. It's the mixing of metals.
Yeah. Well,
in an alchemistic sense, I think, yes. Right?
Although they take a little bit of freedom with that definition, just like they do with history. Because for a lot of people, this isn't going to make any sense, but this is based in turn of the last century, not the recent one, but the past one.
Fin de siècle.
Yes. During the first Russian Revolution, and it takes place in Warsaw. So you've got some very interesting and well-known historical characters that have also been blown far out of proportion, like, say, Rasputin. And the idea is that it's a noir detective where you're trying to figure some stuff out. I haven't actually played it. It just looks interesting. And at the same time, there's a lot of Eldritch horror going on to the point where you can actually sort of pick up some really nasty... what am I looking for here? Paranormal powers by winning certain favors of extraterrestrial beasts or extra normal beasts. So there's a lot of point and click and the sort of stuff that you're used to with, a variety of these detective ones. You look at it, you think Disco Elysium, and I understand why. But the thing is, there's also a huge amount of turn-based combat in it. So they're trying to mix up the two genres a little bit together, give you an RPG and fighting and detective stuff all at the same time, with some interesting powers in the background. Rock, Paper, Shotgun was real impressed that a lot of the time these things, they sound great, but the dialogue ends up, do I want to be a complete and total Erse, or do I want to be the goody two-shoes? And they're like, no, it spans the whole thing. The branches are really good. And it's only about 30 hours. So either if you don't have enough time to sink hundreds of hours into a game, 30 hours is a pretty good one. And if you want to be able to replay it, hey, that also seems like a good wait for the amount of time invested. So it looks interesting. It's in early release. It isn't quite out yet. But if you're ever interested in about 1905 and Warsaw, but in a little slightly different alternative history, this could be interesting. And like I say, you get to hang out with Rasputin.
So I was wrong. It has nothing to do with metal. I'm mixing my genres. Its thaumaturgy is miraculous. So a person who creates miracles. The thaumaturge. Sorry.
Let's talk about reversing a trend. You know how a lot of the games come out these days and they have insane system requirements because I guess it's just easier for the devs to do that than it is to further refine the admittedly difficult task of making games run really well on a variety of PC platforms. But Alan Wake 2's PC version has made an unexpected change. Update 1.0.16.1 has lowered the system requirements. Now you can have 8-year-old GPUs running the game. GTX 1070 RX 5600 XT as the new minimum.
With ray tracing fully supported, I'm assuming.
Probably not. But originally it was the 2060 or the 6600, the Radeon 6600 were the minimums.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like as much today, but we did talk about this when it came out, and we did mention about
because I have to have an RTX card. Well, no, now you can have a 1070 or a 1080 or that 1080 Ti
or 5600 or 5700 XT or something like that, which apparently was one of the best-selling eras of AMD GPUs. For instance, the 5000 series. Yeah, they've gone downhill ever since. Nope, different story.
Oh, hey, by the way, I just want to interrupt for a second. CR Poll in our YouTube chat says, so Alan Wake 2 didn't sell well. Like, yeah, that's probably exactly what this was. Like, this game isn't really selling, so let's relax those system requirements a little bit.
Well, I got the first one for free, and I still haven't played it, so I might just be waiting for the second one to be free.
It's actually one of the fastest...
Hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah, you and I were going to say the same thing, I think, Brett.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right in the middle of the screen when you were saying that, it was that is actually Remedy's fastest selling game. Scroll back up a little bit.
Oh, okay. So that theory is
right there. Yeah, but they haven't recouped the development costs on it yet.
Oh, okay. All right. When is this?
So it outsold
great looking game. Sorry,
Max Payne.
I mean, probably
Max Payne was Remedy, right?
Yeah, I'm 99% sure it was. But I mean, how long ago was that, Josh? The market was smaller.
I'm looking for something.
Yeah, okay. I'd have to hang on.
Do you have Josh looking for something music we could put on?
It's buried under the bear cans.
Yeah.
Max Payne, shiny Remedy, right there in the top.
Remedy.
Yep.
Yeah, it says right on there, Remedy. Arm's reach.
You could just tell by the
bingo.
The genre.
Bing.
The genre kind of gave it away.
Physical hardware.
I can see the dark area with the little blood paths and hear the baby crying.
The kids watching today, if you don't have physical media, you can't be on a stream someday and be able to pull a thing up and show people.
Nor do you actually own it.
True. You just if you don't own it,
Benito went the same place I did. The blood trail and the baby crying in the back.
Sorry, Kent, were you going to say something?
Yeah.
No, nothing important.
Okay. Let's move to our last
surprise. What you say is important. I respect you.
I was just going to make a comment about most hoarders find everything within arm reach.
Hey, hold on. Stop. Time out.
It's not that bad.
We don't use the H word in this house. All right.
It's a good thing he's not in your house.
Our last story in gaming.
You want to know what else before we go on?
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
There you go. Max Payne 2.
The second one.
Fall of Max Payne.
That was in a bigger box. The first one is in one of those little boxes.
Yeah.
That's in like a
small box. Yeah. Rockstar and Remedy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rockstar took it over, and I don't know that they made it better, but they I guess they didn't make it much worse.
There you have it.
All right. So, yeah, Alan Wake 2, lower system requirements now. Next, AMD,
Got
FSR.
shot down by the HDMI forum, and they're not allowed to do their open source HDMI 2.1 anymore?
Oh, sure. But also, there are rumors that there's going to be AI-powered upscaling. Not really rumors. Mark Papermaster has this little series now on YouTube, and he was talking about that as something that they're working on. So, I mean, there already are as many as, 3 dozen titles supporting FSR 3?
Sure.
But don't worry, AI-powered upscaling, isn't that kind of what DLSS is supposed to be?
Exactly.
All right, let's see.
DLSS
Here's the quote
and
from Papermaster. By the way, he's their
ZSS?
Chief Technology Officer. 2024 is a giant year for us. Wait, is? 2024 is? Or maybe it will be?
Is.
Okay,
Is.
it already
We just
is.
did this.
Present.
This is like 2 days old.
Wait, is that present perfect? Or is that... I don't really remember all the rules.
You're asking
So
you're asking
you're
way
saying
too many questions.
2024
The present
is a giant year for us. Okay.
When will 2024 be now?
I guess 2024 is over. Wait, are they on NVIDIA time now? So like we're
When will
already in
now
2025, but 2024
When will-
was a giant year for us.
When will now be
Will
now?
now
when
be
will
then.
when will now be now?
I don't know. So this could be just a typo.
AMD they've gone pled.
2024 is going to be a giant year for us. Makes sense. But okay, let's go back to the quote. Because we spent so many years in our hardware and software capabilities for AI. Did AI write this? Because we
Yes.
spent so many years in our hardware and software capabilities for AI. So Papermaster is saying that 2024 is going to be a giant year because they spent so many years on their hardware and software for AI. Right, because they bet the farm on... Oh, wait, that was NVIDIA. We are enabling our gaming devices to upscale using AI, and 2024 is really a huge deployment year, he says. But it's possible that they're going to do AI upscaling, but you know, it was also possible that they were going to have a competitor to
Anti-lag?
yeah.
Negative latency?
No,
Or negative
what's the NVIDIA one called?
Where you got to have the mouse and the monitor and the whole ecosystem that
Reflex?
ties into it.
Yeah, Reflex, thank you.
Yeah, Reflux. Sorry, yeah.
I said Reflux.
Reflex.
Yeah.
That's different.
Duran Duran.
And I suffer from that, so I sympathize. But yeah, so they were going to have their Reflex competitor, and then it got yanked because it was deemed to be a cheat. People are getting VAC banned, and they still haven't really released. They still haven't
they haven't.
released it.
It wasn't in every game, but there were some games at which it was kicked.
Well,
Just
I think
important
Fortnite was
ones.
one,
Just
so-
ones that were, a bad.
Yeah, because they were doing real-time rewriting of the driver at runtime, and there were certain that kicked, certain cheats that looked like you were cheating because you're rewriting the driver at runtime.
Certain
That's
cheats
sort of
that look
how
like
a
you
lot
were
of cheats
cheating. Yeah.
work.
Certain cheats that, were cheating.
I meant what I said.
Okay. Yeah, that was gaming quick hits. Let's quickly look at a very fast SSD. Now, you may remember just a few short months ago, we looked at the Crucial T700. It's Crucial's first PCIe Gen5 NVMe SSD. Very fast, over 12,000 megabytes per second sequential transfer speeds. But they have a T705 out now. And while it is using the same controller, I believe this is the E26, they're using faster NAND. So they're able to push things from that 12,400 megabytes per second theoretical max of the 700, which, by the way, has been matched by a number of SSDs in the market, including, for example, the Corsair MP700 Pro. But Crucial wants to be the king. They want back on top. And that faster NAND apparently is going to be the key.
Is it as girthy as it looks? Because the heatsink on that thing looks huge.
Okay, let's take this one step at a time. Let's look at the previous review because I actually got out.
You
I
must
actually
answer
got
the
out
question.
what is it called? I can't think of words.
Okay,
anymore
so
'cause I don't get
this
sleep
isn't that
anymore.
funny because I'm still breathing.
Okay. No,
True.
that's true.
Anyway,
Here's a cross section of the previous one. I have pictures in this new review, but let's go back to the old one because I actually got out a caliper and measured it. And this thing is a little over 20 millimeters high.
you know that it is larger than the average.
It's thick. It's a thick boy. Okay.
There we go.
But
Sorry.
can I start this review over again? Hold on.
Yes, please.
So the T705, it's going to put them back on top, right? 14,500 megabytes per second. And it's got the same form factor. I mean, look at these two side by side. These are identical physically. They use the same unique looking kind of extruded aluminum heatsink that looks like a ziggurat from the side. I don't know how to describe this, but it's very thick. And there you can see the sticker on the bottom. This is indeed the T705. It's 2 terabyte Gen5 SSD. It's so fast. What are you going to do with it? Well, you're going to run synthetic benchmarks. That's what you're going to do. So I have to, a little footnote here. I know people love this stuff. Not really. For the 8 people in the world who care, I was having all sorts of stability problems and weirdly low transfer speeds on the Intel test platform, the Z690 board that I used for the last review of one of these drives. So I just had to scrap it. I threw away all the results and went to an AMD board, that much maligned MSI Meg X670E Ace that I have
pulled it back?
I have been dumping on this thing for 2 years now. Going back to the AM5 system, 0 issues. Rock solid, full theoretical performance reached. I was very pleased. So shout out to AMD for making a great platform that's finally mature almost 2 years later. So with the latest chipset drivers, Windows 11 Pro, look at this speed. I actually slightly exceeded the advertised numbers at a Q depth of 8. This is with the peak performance preset, which sets the Q depth to 8 for sequentials and 32 for random 4K in Crystal Disk Mark. 14,543 megabytes per second sequential reads. Writes are, I think, 12,700 is what it's rated for.
Yeah.
How about 12,744? Random 4K, ridiculous. 944.95 megabytes per second random 4K reads. Random 4K writes, 656. Just ridiculous. And that's with an empty drive, though, although it wasn't much different with a half full drive, and I didn't put that screenshot in here for some reason. But I did fill the drive halfway and ran Crystal Disk Mark in a more granular way. I did the separate QD1, QD2, QD4, and QD8 runs. So here is a look at that. Here are the sequentials. And it is noticeably faster than the 700. So if you have to have the fastest Gen 5 SSD in your system today, this is it. Get the crucial T705 because it's 2,000 megabytes per second faster on the sequential reads.
No, that's Phison E26.
Yeah, but with the really fast NAND. I don't know the exact number without looking at a better review, like the AnandTech review that actually discusses such technical topics.
I stumbled into a couple of reviews, and it turns out that Phison controller loves 2 terabytes.
Yeah, this is the sweet spot. That's why they're sampling this. Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at random, actually the T700 holds its own. I mean, clearly they tuned this T705 for those big sequential numbers because there's very little difference. We're talking rounding errors almost in the random 4K performance with these two terabyte drives. So don't get the T705 over the T700 for random 4K performance because it is only slightly faster on the random 4K reads. The crucial T700 was just a little bit faster, at least in my testing on the random 4K writes, but it was like a rounding error. And I mentioned that I did not go to Malvin-Tonian, lengths here. It's just
as a verb,
Crystal Disk Mark.
As a verb, even
it is. Here was the much more interesting part of this that I actually wanted to talk about. When I was testing this initially, the motherboard that I'm using, this AM5 board, has the Gen 5 slot up next to the memory, kind of a DIMM.2 situation like Asus did with their ROG boards. So it's not in a position where you would normally get good airflow because it's kind of hiding behind your RAM, depending on where your case fans are. When I had absolutely no airflow anywhere near the SSD on the open test bed, I had notably lower performance over longer term testing, like the PC Mark 10 full system drive benchmark. And then when I just put a standard case fan at like 400 RPM near it to simulate what it would be like to have some airflow in the case, it improved significantly. Suddenly temperatures weren't just stuck at 75 C on the drive. It was in like, 31 at idle and would go into like the 40s under load. So you need some airflow. Think about this. This is probably the fastest Gen 5 SSD you can buy, and it has a passive heatsink on it. You can even buy one with no heatsink at all and just use your motherboard heatsink or some third-party heatsink. So I appreciate that because there's no screaming tiny fan on it. Josh is riveted by this, but their heatsink design is pretty beefy. If you look at the cross-section photo, get it like a little knock to a fan and just glue it to the end of this, I guess, for maximum performance. But the actual numbers for those listening in the PC Mark 10 full system drive benchmark, the T705 with absolutely no appreciable airflow still managed 661.52 megabytes per second of bandwidth. That's like average bandwidth during this test, it's very good for a PC Mark 10. Average access time was 39 microseconds. But that improved to 36 microseconds and 708.74 average megabytes per second with just
you'll
some
feel that
basic
improvement.
airflow.
I'm telling you.
I felt it. I felt like it was snappier during this test.
Your OS experience was at another level with airflow.
It did improve. It improved both of the drives. Check it out. Go to PCPer.com, look at the charts, read the review. Anyway, the pricing though, that's where you have to kind of question, do you really need Gen 5, like high-end Gen 5 stuff, when how many people are even on Gen 4 yet? When there's so many Gen 3 drives out there. But anyway, if you want this drive as reviewed with the heatsink, it is $439.99 for a 2 terabyte drive.
Oh, Ryan would be so upset.
That's a bit on the high side.
You're paying for the best. Do you want the best in the world?
That's 20 cents per gigabyte. I'm sorry.
Look, when you're transferring data from every other drive in the world, but that would be slower. So then
if you were doing frame pacing, it would be worth it.
I don't know.
Fair. But no, I mean, the competitor is like the Sabrent Rocket 5, the 2 terabyte model, same price. They just sort of settled.
Much? Yeah. It's like $439. Okay.
Yeah, it's 20 cents a gig or plus. So yeah, that's what you're going to be paying if you want this sort of insanity.
Yeah, if you want bleeding edge, then hey, I guess this is the only game in town. I don't know of any boards personally that have multiple Gen 5 M.2 slots on them. No. The ones I was looking at.
You might find one that has like a couple with 2 lanes, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah, we need 2 4-lane Gen 5 slots before, to me, this seems like a viable thing. At least for my
there's
needs.
all your PCI slots, so I hope you like an integrated GPU.
You could just have the 16 into just a single 8. You're good.
Yeah,
that's really. I just like get a adapter card that and use AMD and it's bifurcated and yeah. So that won't be an issue at all. And then put an active fan on it too, like a low speed active fan.
No thanks.
Okay. Well, anyway, I gave it the gold award just because it's so damn fast. It's faster than the T700, which was already ridiculously fast. Then the rest of the industry caught up right away because it's it's the same controller. Everyone's using that Phison controller. Shout out to
E26.
Alan, by the way, working at Phison now.
Yeah.
I want to see that newer process tech variant and see what they can do. Because already
instead of 12 nanometer stuff.
Yeah. Already Crucial's doing, the passive thing, which I'm very happy about, but I want more. I want it to not require airflow at all and still not throttle.
Wouldn't that be water cooled?
Well,
shush you.
That's water flow. I mean, water has air in it.
You said air cooled. Air cooled.
Okay. So that's that review, and it is time for picks of the week. Josh, welcome back.
Okay, so I've been testing the smaller brother / sister of this card, and it's been pretty good to me. But this one is it's the overclock version. It's in white. It's the 4070 Ti Super. It comes standard with the 3 pigtail to 1 12-volt high power. So you can, in theory, pull some more wattage out of that. But it's overclocked, and it's $839 plus $10 off. So for an extra $30 from the stock, you get an overclock version in white with a higher power factor involved. So you can go up to a faster card. And it's got, of course, 16 gigs of memory, and it's the Ti Super 4070. It's not horrific for what is offered on the market, and especially compared to it's not that far off from a base 4070 Ti Super, and it's not a base 4070 Ti Super.
Exactly. Jeremy, your pick.
Well, it might be the Mel Brooks collection Blu-ray that Stick and just linked to. But no, here is something that I stumbled across today, and I don't know how I feel about it. Now, the Corsair 4000D Airflow is a decent case, right? I've seen reviews of it, and it is good. But how would you feel about it with a teak front panel, so that you can feel like you've got an old speaker?
It looks like a little bit like a dehumidifier, like an old dehumidifier.
Like, if you click quickly to the RGB version, you can see the normal version of it down a little bit. So that's what it normally looks like. Looks like a fairly normal case now, but I just teak, really?
Well, what's wrong? Look, Fractal changed the game, Jeremy, because Fractal North comes out. More tastefully. It's got wood slats on the front. Everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful."
We need to replace one of our panels.
What I want to know is that actually teak, or is it just like a vinyl sticker? Is it wood grain? Is it simulated wood grain, or is it actual teak?
At that point, does it really matter?
It does matter, because it's about prestige.
But yes, it is teak.
I want to tell people, well, my computer case uses teak.
But does it really look that good? And it's on sale. Hey, it's only $120 Canadian. So you could pick it up if you wanted. But I don't know.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would you rather teak front panel in your case or full-on RGB everything?
Oh, well, I'm going teak 100%.
See, there you go. So that's sorted. Solid side panels made of teak front panel, modest airflow. It's great.
Al Bundy suggests moving to candles in order to get that real warmth look.
No,
Edison will. It's a new plastic.
I think we're going to start to see maybe PC cases fitted with fire soon. I think that's the next step. You heard it here first.
But if you've got the teak front panel, can you sand that for some aroma now and then?
I would.
After 5 years, you've got a really extremely thin front panel. But boy,
you got to oil it too. I mean, otherwise it's just going to dry out and crack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And when you heat it, does it give off that sort of woody aroma?
Exactly. That's what Josh is asking, and I'm
part of its charm.
Yeah. Are they using lacquer instead of like polyurethane. If it's lacquer, that thing will go up. You know, like you could just throw that
There
on the
is
fire.
also that. I mean,
I just hope it's not a veneer. That would be offensive.
I feel like it's going to be a sticker, but I don't know.
It's not. It says it's made with teak.
Made
Teak veneer?
with teak. Like teak was in the room when we made this sticker.
We rubbed it on top.
Yeah, we rubbed it on
It's a guy
there.
who works for Corsair named Teak.
Exactly.
He was in
Teak
the room.
made
It's
it, man. He designed
of course.
this.
Every
All right.
case has the same wood grain. Isn't that strange?
It's all like shaved from the same piece of wood. It's 100 millionth of a millimeter, vacuum sealed. Like, you know, what they do with guitar veneers now, like flame maple top. Like, flame maple paper vacuums to the top.
Glued
maybe.
to pine. Blind. We're making potentially fun of the fact that it may be veneer. It's not likely to be veneer. It doesn't appear
Is it?
to be that way.
Who cares if it is or not? Wood grain has its own cachet. It's retro. You know?
That's true.
All
It
right.
would match some of my speakers, but at the same. Oh my God, Mir's got one, or at least found one.
Brett, your pick this week.
Yes.
My pick this week is I'm going to ask that if you're looking for something from a Corsair, before you pay full price at Amazon or any place else, definitely shop this place. And that's the Corsair Refurb Store, where they've got power supplies, they've got fans. If you're looking for some extra fans for decking out your case, and oftentimes your fan kit from Corsair will have the ability to plug several additional fans into the controller.
Look at the prices on these keyboards. This is less than half off. This is more than half off.
I went and stayed, a few items in here, and some of them are somewhat close to retail, $10 or $20, but many of them power supplies, 850 watt, just below $100, for instance. There's a few in there. If you're looking to like a white case build, you could sweep through the Corsair Refurb Store and pick up a ton of white case gear, for instance, at $40, $50, $60 off normal pricing. It's a great place to do some refurb diving on Corsair gear. You don't really see this very often, and here it is, company store. I don't shop here very often, so it was something new to me in the last couple of weeks. And if you didn't know about it, you should definitely take a look if you're looking to do a new build or looking to do a fresh build that you're doing for a relative, a friend, or somebody, and you're looking for an inexpensive way to get them into a high wattage power supply. Definitely check this out. I was pretty impressed by the dollars off.
That's good.
I have bought from them before. It's same thing. I guess anytime a company offers their own refurbished stuff, pretty confident with that. Like and Cardo CP in the chat saying that it's solid. They do good inspection on returns. I had a great experience. The stuff was basically new. It was just new in like brown boxes instead of retail boxes. I bought my last 2 Corsair power supplies from the refurbished store.
My sort of like median was like when I was seeing 850 watt power supplies at just under $100, and I'm like, wow, that's a pretty good deal, direct from Corsair. So, and that'll power most reasonable GPUs. Reasonable.
What about shipping? I don't remember what I paid for shipping on the power supplies, but I don't think it's free shipping. It's not outrageous.
Didn't actually do the checkout.
Oh, okay.
But the next time you're looking to, like I said, fill out a case with additional Corsair fans because the controller has, a bunch of spots left, and you need it. Like, I just need 2 more fans for the bottom, or I've done the intake exhaust. I need a couple more. This is definitely a way to fill out that case with some additional matched up.
Way to fill out that case, Brett. That case is looking swole.
Appreciate it,
bro.
Yeah, you know how it is.
No, the shipping, she is not free.
No.
Just be sure to do all your testing in a case that is saran wrapped.
Or wrapped in teak, wood grain stickers.
Well,
you don't want too much airflow in your case right away. You kind of want to expose it slowly.
That's how a non-tech used to test some of their pre-built systems coming in. So that was back in like 2000. It was not.
Okay.
It only lasted a very little while. But anyway, moving along.
Yes, Kent,
Yeah,
your
let's not
pick
bring up
this week.
Tom's.
Kent, your pick this week.
Sure. There's a lot of folks out there that have got AM4 systems, and you don't have to go upgrade to AM5 or LGA 1700 if you want to improve your gaming performance. You can still get some very fast CPUs if you've got a old 2600, 2800 CPU, 3000, or even like a 4000 series GPU. You can, for a reasonable price, drop in 5600 or 5700X 3D at $247 right now, and add a more up-to-date GPU, and you're set. You're set for at least a few years. Very cheap upgrade to improve a gaming system.
Hey, Kent, do you think this is enough CPU for a 4090? Would that be a good pairing?
Depends on what resolution you're running at. If you're looking for if you're looking for absolute max frames at 1080p, you're going to have to.
What? Yeah. Please, PSA, do not buy 4090s to play at 1080p unless you happen to have like a 500, hertz refresh monitor and you're a competitive gamer. But yeah.
Yeah, if you're playing at 1440, any of the modern graphics cards are going to be the bottleneck on even the 50, even on the 5000 Series X 3D chips.
And
the GPU is going to be the bottleneck.
What if I'm using AI upscaling? Doesn't the CPU need to be more powerful then?
Not yet. The cloud. They'll be handled in the cloud, in the metaverse, Jeremy.
Of course.
Metaverse.
Okay, we're approaching the pumpkin changing hour.
Uh-oh. It is a quarter to midnight on the East Coast. So, hey, there's nothing left to do, Josh. I don't have a pick, as usual. So let's just end the show. Thanks, everybody, for watching, listening.
Sebastian, pull something off the shelf. Come on.
Huh? What?
Sebastian, pull something off the shelf for your pick.
No, I have the same. This is how boring I am. I have the same slot A board we talked about last week, sitting back here.
Sebastian, just find a link for the Mel Brooks collection Blu-ray DVD or Blu-rays that Steichen listed in Discord, and put those up on the.
Oh, you know what? Here's one thing. Recently, so I actually bought something recently. It was the 4K. UHD Blu-ray of the Maltese Falcon, which actually is a surprisingly significant upgrade over the Blu-ray release from Warner Brothers. So there was this big commemorative set they put out, and now some of the individual discs are out there on Amazon. And I paid like $20 for this, $21. It looks fantastic. I didn't think it could look any better than the Blu-ray, and it does. So, if you're a fan of old movies, Maltese Falcon. 4K. Get physical media while you still can. No, it is not. That movie was filmed back when 4:3 was the standard.
I didn't know if there was ever if it was ever in a 16:9 format or not.
No, they didn't start doing that until they did the CinemaScope and all those crazy.
It was the usual
50s,
35 millimeter picture.
Yeah. It's 2 to 3, 35 millimeter film. That's our show tonight. Thank you for watching, listening, and we'll be back next week with so much more to talk about than ever before. It'll be the greatest show we've ever had in the history of PC Perspective. That's a promise that we can't keep. So, or can. You never know what the future holds. You never know.
I endorse that.
Maybe we'll all die shortly after we sign off tonight. And there
promises,
just won't be another show ever again. Thanks to special, live chatters, Hard OCP, Kelt from Falcon Northwest. They all came for Josh, though. They weren't here last week.
The usual crew. So much good content.
Yeah, and that PCPer logo in the middle that everybody loves to hate. Somebody says, I'd like to see Jim in the 6th. Hey, maybe Jim will come back. He can guest spot with us at some point. He's done it before.
He He might. I know Alan's good to go.
Alan, I feel like we need to get him on anyway. We need to learn all about the latest developments from Phison.
Yes,
All
we
right.
do.
But it's over.
Maybe
but I
next-
want it to be over. Josh, make it happen.
Oh gosh, you know what? February went by and it was fast and it was awful. And you know what? It's better in the rearview mirror, like a lot of things. Kind of like my third wife. No, I never had a third wife. Sometimes I wished I did, but I really don't because alimony sucks. But yeah, this was.
If you lived in Utah,
BT.
you could have the third wife.
I could, but I don't.
need a
Because
super
Where's this
Spice, though.
going?
I don't have state income tax, and that's a whole reason I live here. Plus, there's no people, and the weather is awful, and that keeps the people away. And for that, I'd like to keep the viewers away after I make this pronouncement. Whatever. Good night.